Let's now go further to creating ML models on the data source that we have processed till now. We can find that option here in this drop down on the top left corner, and we can click on ML models. This is an ML model which I had created. You will find all the ML models that you have created till date on this page, and you can use any of this ML model to do any of your further predictions. So for now, I'll click on this create new ML model button. This will start my create ML model process. The first step is to give my model an input data. So we have recently added a data source to our machine learning. So this is asking for an input data. So I have already created a data source. I'll choose this icon and pick up the data that we have exported, which is churn data. So this is what it has loaded, and you can see in the bottom of the page that that the validation is successful, and I can continue with this data set. You can also change your data source in case you have changed, you want to change anything or you want to choose another data set, you can change it from here as well. We should see the details that we have of our data source. So it looks like the same data, and the important thing that we have is the target attribute name and the target type, which is binary. So this looks like the right data to me, and also the important thing that we see here is that there are no models trained yet on this data. So we have models trained as 0 and evaluations created as 0 and batch predictions created as 0. So in case once you have created your model and you have run some validations and predictions on this, you'll find the metadata about this input data on this first page. This is good that AML gives you an insight about your data at each step that you are using, that you are going on while creating your ML model. So at each point you have an insight about how your data looks like and what is the process that you are following. So this looks like good to me. I'll continue with this data set. So now we see that machine learning is asking for our model settings. So you can, it says that you can use automatically suggested ML model settings or you can choose to customize. So this is what we have discussed in the theory part, that we can either use a default option to create our ML model or a custom option. We can look at both of these options in this demo. So let's first see that what is the ML model type that AML has picked up. So we can see that AML is going to use a binary classification model. So you can go on and the info of this, and which says that binary classification model predicts a binary outcome, and this model will be trained using the logistic regression algorithm. So we know that the ML model type is going to be binary, as our target variable was binary in was a binary attribute, so it would be a binary classification. And since I have already told that for binary classification, the algorithm that AML uses is logistic regression with a stochastic gradient descent as the optimization technique. So this is what AML will be going to use for this data set that we have imported. The ML model name is churn data, so this it has already picked up. So I wouldn't be making any changes to this. Now we see the select training and evaluation settings. So here, this is the part where we select if we want to use the default settings for our data set, or we will go with some custom recipe that will within that we'll change our training parameters. So let's first go with the default. So here are some of the default properties that AML wants us to look into. So this will AML will take all default options if we use this particular method, and it also mentions that it will be using all the default training parameters, and it's going to set aside 30% of our training data to evaluate the training, which means our test set would be 30% of our total data set that we have. The next is the next important thing that it says is it's going to split the evaluation data sequentially. So we have discussed about reshuffling and shuffling of our data. So looks like the default splitting parameter that we have for AML is sequential split. So if we click on this info, it says that Amazon ML sequentially splits our input data using 70% for a training and 30% for a evaluation data set. Since we have our data already shuffled, it is not going to make a difference for us. But in case we had a different data set which might have had a value which is sorted based on a particular column, like we had discussed about the example of this data set with its genre column sorted. So we might have an issue when we are exposing our test set to our data because it has not learned all the patterns from the training data set that it has. But for our data set, we are not going to have any such problem because I have already shuffled this data set for this demo. So yeah, we can go ahead and use this default option here. So evaluation name, again, I'm not going to change this and it looks fine to me. So this is again shown data evaluation. I'll go to the next step, which is reviewing what all things Amazon ML model has picked up. So now you can see that we are coming straight from ML model settings to review settings because we haven't selected the custom option. So we are not supposed to change any recipe, or we are not supposed to change any customize any training parameters. So AML has already skipped these steps, and we are here on review data set, a review of our ML model. So it says that we can review and make any changes on this data that we have. We have our input data here, which is says as completed to be read. Then we have our ML model settings. So ML model name is showing data and ML model parameters are all default for this particular model. Evaluation name and evaluation data, which again says is 70% for training and it will reserve the remaining 30% for evaluation, and this will be a sequential split. So I'm okay with this because this is what I had selected. So recipe, since it's default, so it's not going to, since you have not provided any recipe, Amazon will create its own recipe for this, which is its default recipe. And next we have our advanced settings. So we have discussed about this that maximum size of the ML model should be 100 MB. So this is what will be created. So it would be of maximum of 100 MB, and the maximum number of data passes that we have would be 10. So we have done this. So this is what it's take as default. So it would be taking 10 passes on all for making a decision. And this shuffle type is auto since we have not set any shuffle type. We have already discussed about the regularization type, which is by default L2. So this is what it takes here. And the regularization amount is a very small value. So in when we have our default setting, Amazon ML picks a mild value within like an average range for regularizing its predictor variables, which are the variables which are independent. Now I think the default setting is all set, and I can go ahead and create my ML model. So I'll go ahead and click this. It will take a couple of minutes to process whole of the data set. So you can see here that the ML model summary is coming and the status is pending, that it's still making the model, and you can see the data source, the target variable again. So we have all the creations, evaluations created. So it's still processing. So we'll wait for the evaluations to come. Predictions is what we'll be doing a little time later. So we'll wait for this to finish. I have refreshed this page and I can see that the status has changed from pending to in progress. So it looks like it's about to finish as the current step says training and the correct iteration is 10 on 10, which was the maximum passes that we had kept. It looks like it's going to be ready. I'll again refresh the page, see if there are any updates. Yeah, so it looks like the status shows as completed. The completion time that it shows is 2 minutes. So this compute time is given based on the CPU time spent on processing the data that we have. So every process that was done using within that much of CPU time is given here. So you might have to refresh your pages couple of times to see if the model creation has finished or not. They usually doesn't refresh the page after it finishes some processing. So you'll have to keep refreshing your page to see if it has already completed creating the model or not. So we can again see the log that we have. So we see that we have the log for each of the iteration that we have here. So we have a learning rate, which I said would be default. So we have a default rate of 0.01 in the first iteration and 0.1 in the next, 1 in the next, and it keeps increasing as is liked by AML model as soon as it starts running. So there are a couple of other metrics as well here. So we have the accuracy rate, precision. So this is also for each of the passes that we have here. So on each of the record that we have. So this is what it looks like.